Everybody get enough food? I think there's still quite a bit left if you want to make another pass while we're having our presentation. I'm going to turn some time over to Merlin Spedlove to make an introduction of our Modern Day Pioneer Award. And then at the very end tonight, we'll close with Jerry Hedden giving the benediction. And again, remember the Christmas party, take a snapshot of the flyer that's on your table, or if you didn't see one, there's one up here by the stand. So, okay. All right, Steve, how you doing? Okay, I think Steve and Pam found out why they're here now. Somebody bumped the thing in their picture to show up on the screen. So a couple of months ago, when we made this decision for a Modern Day Pioneer, I thought, well, this would be a good guy. He's a BYU fan. I thought I was the best BYU fan, and then I met Steve quite a few years back. Saw all of his collections, and I liked it all. So one day, if they come up missing, Jed took them. So a couple of months ago, we had Gifford Nelson here speaking, and I've been communicating with Jed, getting this all planned out. And said, make sure he's here, but you guys went to a funeral or something. I can't believe that. Went to a funeral or something. So, but he is a BYU fan. I thought I knew all the players, but you can sit down with Steve. As long as his mind's still as sharp as it used to be, I thought I knew all the players, but I couldn't even be close to naming any of them. So we're here to honor you and your wife tonight. So without further ado, we're going to turn the time over to Jed and your family. And I would like you two to come and sit right here in these two chairs. Right over here. That'll give a couple more chairs for your family. So Jed, let's turn the time over to you. So before we do that, let's get you guys in this chair here.
Merlin, did you want to give him the plaque and
Yes.
pictures too?
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this plaque. We've had fun in the past. If your name's Farrell Campbell, they don't know how to spell Farrell, right? So I have 2 or 3 Farrell Campbell plaques come and go. And when I ordered this one, they said, oh, we're going to get some new plaques, so let's wait and order a new plaque. Luckily, I called them about 2 weeks ago and says, hey, I haven't seen the plaque. And they usually take 4 to 6 weeks to get here. So I got this yesterday. So today, and I'm sorry, my fingerprints are going to be on it. Steve and Pam Stout, and I asked the lady, I done the spelling on the phone to her. She goes, well, I used to be a Stout, so she knew how to spell Stout. Ask your kids, they said, no, if we put Stephen, he's in trouble, and Pamela, you're in trouble. So it was Steve and Pam. But we'd like to congratulate you, and we'll turn the time over to your family.
We're just going to slide this back so you can see the slides. So yeah, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Jed. I'm their second favorite child. And there's 3 of them that aren't here, so they don't get to be on the list for favorites. But this is their favorite child, my oldest sister, Tricia. So she's going to guide us with the slideshow, but we'll both make some commentary.
We're excited to be here tonight. It feels like we're back home. Well, I'm back home. We've been in Cedar City for many years, so it's super cool to be here. We are happy and excited and honored to honor and talk about our parents, Pam and Steve Stout, tonight. There aren't 2 people in this world that I can speak for Jed and myself and my other siblings, Tracy and Jake and Tina, that we love more than our parents. They're amazing. And so we thought that we would go through and not only honor them, but also honor our Hurricane Valley pioneers, because we have so many that we love, and we figured that there would be so many of you that are related to many of those people that you would know and have memories of. So we just wanted this to be kind of a fun little interaction. And Jed and I decided that if we tell something wrong, please correct us, because you all would probably know a lot better than us. So, yeah. But, yeah. Okay, here we go. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so these are some of the families that that we come through, that my dad, your dad's line, right? Yep. So because he's more the Utah side. If you don't know my mom, Pam, she's a Midwestern girl, and they're her parents were modern day pioneers, and we'll get into that. But so in Dad's line, I am actually curious in this room, how many of you are my quadruple cousins or worse? I see. Just looking at the names, yeah. So that's Leon Gubler, he's my uncle, and I'm his uncle, and that's a hurricane thing. Those of you who are from here, you know what we're talking about. So we're really proud of all of these names, and my dad and mom taught us a lot. They taught us a lot about our pioneer heritage as we grew up. We were always hearing about different grandfathers and grandmothers and the things that they did. And so for me, because of the way we were raised, being connected to our ancestry, I see those names and I just feel something just by knowing that those are the names that trickle down their blood into my children, and that my children have traits passed down from Zara Pulsifer, who was one of the early, wasn't he with 7 presidents of the 70 in the church? And I think Brigham kicked him out of the church for a minute and then invited him back and forgave him the next day, something like that. Brigham was an armory fellow once in a while. Levitts, how many of you have Levitt blood in you? I'm curious, I know there's gotta be a bunch. Probably the rest of you ought to be raising your hands up. Oh, Dudley, are you from Dudley or no?
No, from Lemuel and from Jeremiah.
Okay. So Sarah Sturdivant Levitt, 2 of her sons come through you? Okay.
My family married into it.
Okay, you married in. Well, Sarah Sturdivant Levitt's one of my favorite pioneer ancestors ever. But yeah, we could go and we may come back to some of these names and talk about them, but it's just worth noting. I love that this group meets and talks about your Utah pioneer heritage, because it's so important for us to remember who we are and where we come from. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Okay, we're gonna start with our grandma, Jonna Pulsifer Stout's lineage a little bit, and that's my dad's mother. So that's Steve's mother, Jonna, which a lot of you probably knew her. Her father was John Pulsifer, and her mother was Cleone Pulsifer. Yes, that was her maiden name and her married name. So we don't know a lot about John. We know a little bit about John because he tragically was killed when my grandma our great grandma Cleone was pregnant with our grandma Jonna. She didn't even know she was pregnant with Jonna. She had 5 little kids at home. They were all like preschool age, very, very tiny and really close together. And so it's kind of a tragic love story. None of us really knew John, but we will know him more later. Cleone was awesome. We love her. We knew her until we were in high school. So we were really, really lucky to know our great-grandmother, and a lot of you probably knew her as well. She was a spicy little lady. We loved her. So she was wonderful. She had the most beautiful roses in the Hurricane Valley, and she grew her little house, she grew everything she could. It didn't look like she lived in a desert. It looked like she lived in a beautiful oasis. So when her sweetheart was killed, we found this article, I believe, from the Beaver, what was it called, Jed? The Beaver Gazette or something like that, from a Southern Utah newspaper back when John Pulsifer was killed. And we're gonna go ahead and let Jed read that so we can tie that in.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is an almost 100-year article, so it's from the year 1930. The title of the news article is "Killed by a Fall from Cliff at St. George." It really wasn't in St. George, but that's what they said. It says, fainting while clinging in a precipitous ledge after a charge of buckshot had ripped the flesh from the calf of his leg, John Pulsifer, 30 years old, fell past the outstretched arms of his brother, bent upon rescue, and plunged to his death on the rocks 65 feet below. The tragedy occurred in the mountains 50 miles northwest of Bunkerville at 6:35 p.m. on March 24th. According to word received Tuesday in St. George, Pulsifer, a resident of Bunkerville, accompanied by his brother Walter, age 16, and another boy, went into the hills to cut cedar posts. One of their horses fell over a cliff and was disabled. The appearance of several wildcats among high rocky ledges caused the trio to turn their trip into a hunting trip, when loss of the horse made it impossible for them to haul posts. With a shotgun tied to his waist, John braved the sheer cliffs. While cautiously making his way around a dangerous, difficult ledge, the shotgun was discharged, the pellets ripping John's leg just below the knee. When the two lads below heard the report, Walter hastened to his brother's rescue. John hung by his hands with his uninjured foot on an infinitesimal toehold. Walter had almost reached the older man when shock and loss of blood took their toll. The body dropped like a plummet, striking and rolling over the edge for an additional 15-foot drop. Walter, it is reported, said his brother made a desperate effort to keep from tumbling over the last ledge. When Walter and his companion reached the older man, he was dead. Practically every bone in his body was broken. So that, I've never read that before until Tricia gave that to me today, and it just makes it a little more real. I think something can be 100 years ago and still just be something very tragic. I don't know if it ever dawned on me he was 30 years old. So, anyways, that's a story. And so Grandma then was left a widow in 1930. You have to realize what kind of year that was. Going into the Depression, that must have been a tough time to raise all those kids, including my grandma who was in her womb at the time. So, something powerful and difficult.
So the baby was born about, what month was that?
When was Grandma born? November 30th.
So 8 months later, our grandma, Jonna, was born, and she was named after her dad, John. So if you ever wondered where Jonna came from, it comes from her dad, John. So, these are just some pictures from the Great Depression of our great-grandmother with her children. You can see our grandma, Jonna. In the picture on the left is the baby on her lap. And that is a very blurry picture. I'm so sorry. I hope some of your eyes are like mine because it's awful. I'm so sorry. It looked better on my phone.
The picture's fine, it's your eyes.
So anyway, this is the Pulsifer family, if you could see it. And then we're gonna move on to our grandpa Boyd Stout's family. And his parents were Marion and Mary Stout. And their little greenhouse is still standing in Hurricane. And we grew up just right next door to that house. So I don't know a whole lot about Marion. Do you?
Well, I got his name. That's my middle name is Marion. I didn't like it when I was a kid, but now I'm proud of it. Marion was. Is there anybody in here who knew Mary or Marion? Dave did.
I read history on him.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, he was a strong-willed old guy, I think, from what I understand. And Mary was a busy, fast-moving little tiny woman. But there's a lot we don't know. But the stories about them are amazing. Greg?
How is Marion related to John Stout, John Stout's father? What?
I think they were brothers.
I mean, because he looks, that's the spitting image.
Of John?
Or Wynn.
Yeah. Win Stout.
Oh, it's Wynn you're talking
Oh,
about.
yeah.
Well, I'm talking
John is Wynn's younger brother.
Camel Stout, yeah.
So we're talking about cousins, they're cousins.
Okay.
That's what Steve said. Okay.
Marion's father was Alan Joseph Stout. He was one of Joseph Smith's bodyguards. So there's a very rich heritage there as well. I do know that. So, flash through here a little bit. Hopefully these are a little bit better. But here's the Stout family. This photo on the right, I found on Family Search. I absolutely love it. It's my grandma and grandpa Boyd and Jonna with my dad on their lap, and then our grandma Mary off to the side. And then the Stout family's on the left, that all of my grandfather's siblings. Oops. Oh, there it is. Okay, so then reading letters that my cute grandma Jonna wrote to her cousin. She talked about going to Sunday school, and a very rude boy was staring at her in Sunday school. And that rude boy was my grandpa Boyd. So I just thought that was so cute because they were so in love. I cannot think of a couple that I've ever known that were more in love than our grandma and grandpa Stout. So here they are in their younger years and just looking just like movie stars. They're so cute. They ended up getting married. Oops. And they had this cute little boy, Steve. I wish you could see those photos, but Steve is their oldest child. And then he has 3 other brothers and 1 sister. And do you want to say anything about that?
Well, say one thing that I think many people find interesting is when that baby boy was about 8 years old, I think, Steve, we're talking about. Is that when your dad went in for the surgery? 9, when you were 9 years old. Yeah, so Grandpa was probably only 29 years old. And he had to get heart surgery back before people did heart surgery. This would be the year probably 1959 then, I'm guessing, yeah? So one of the earliest open heart surgeries, and there was some wacky, crazy experimental heart surgeon that was willing to do that. And his name was Dr. Russell Nelson. And that guy tore my grandpa open and fixed up his heart. And I don't know if he knew fully what he was doing because it was experimental, but it worked. And the miracle of it that we always thought in our family is one of the beautiful things, because yeah, as most of you know, we lost Boyd at a fairly young age. Was he 55, Dad, when he died? So we lost him at 55. But I think a really important thing to know about the blessing of that surgery and all the prayers that went into it is that was after his youngest child was off on a mission. So he did get to finish raising all of his kids. Sent the youngest one away on a mission. In fact, my Uncle Johnny was almost done with his mission when Grandpa died. But it's kind of one of those beautiful miracles that we're proud of and happy that happened, because I got to know him even. I was 7, I think, when he died. Oh, my mom says they gave him 5 years to live when they did the surgery, so he went a lot better than 5 years, and Tricia and I knew him well, which is a miracle that we did.
President Nelson told my grandpa told my grandpa when he went in for his appointment before the surgery, he said, Brother Stout, you need to have this surgery. And he said, well, I want to wait until after the holidays so that my wife doesn't have to go through the holidays alone with the kids. And he said, you may not live to the end of the holidays if we don't do your surgery now. So they went ahead and did that surgery, and we are, like Jed said, so grateful for that. I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a little old-time musical number, Jed and Nicole, and so we'll go ahead and do that.
We'll just sing a cowboy song. I don't know how really old-timey it is, but just sit up here. This is my wife, Nicole. Isn't she cute?
Yes.
nicest person I ever met. So I married her. Slide over.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
All right. All day I face barren waste, now I face water. Feet are sore and he's looking for just one more thing than water. Cool water. Like me, I guess he'd like to rest where there's no quest for water. Cool, clear water. I know my dad likes that song. I like to pretend like Grandpa Stout did. I assume he had to have. Did he? Okay. It feels like a Grandpa Stout song, so that's one reason I like it.
Growing up, we always witnessed the different acts of service that our grandparents did. Boyd and Jonna. I know that I was, I think, 12 when my grandfather passed away, and then through a really long time, all of my boys were born when my grandma passed away, so we were able to witness a lot of that. But one thing about them is that they never bragged about things that they did. Probably a lot of the things I would assume we never knew that they did them. We would just catch them once in a while doing really, really nice things for people. And I feel like my mom and dad are the same way, so we'll get into that a little bit. Okay, so my dad came of age and was called to a mission, the Kansas, Missouri mission. And you see a picture of Elder Stout there looking all young and spry. And his parents there in front of the St. George Temple. The Kansas, Missouri mission changed in the middle of his mission to the Central State mission. Other way around, I messed up, sorry Mom. I was trying to ask her very discreetly all these things the last few days, but I messed up, sorry about that. So my dad got called to the Midwest, which was Missouri, Nebraska, I believe was Iowa, Kansas, and Missouri at the time. So it was a big, big area. And there happened to be a cute little family living there. And that family was John and Wilda Gilstorf. And these are our mother's parents. John and Wilda Gilstorf were amazing people. They were not Utah pioneers, but they were pioneers in their own right with bringing forward the gospel to a lot of people in the Midwest. everywhere my grandparents went, when I was a girl, and I can remember this, they had a case of Book of Mormons in the trunk of their car. And they would hand them to people everywhere. And Grandpa was never worried about what somebody would think about him or, or shy about it. He just would hand those Book of Mormons out. And they were just awesome people. Our grandfather was also a World War II vet. He was a Marine in World War II, right in the thick of it, very, very much in the thick of the war, and didn't talk a whole lot about it. If we were lucky, we got to hear a few stories from him. He just didn't like talking about it. It was very traumatic. But our grandparents were very, very, I'm trying to think of the word. Yeah, they were very humble, and they just loved to spread the gospel, and we all knew that. So this is a picture of my grandparents on the left, and then on the right you see a picture of my mom and her siblings, so with my grandparents in Missouri. And every year growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. My parents didn't want us to know that, but it's hard to not. We sometimes know that. But we always, every year without fail, no matter if they had $20 to $50 to their name, we got in whatever car we were driving, and we drove to Missouri. We drove straight through. We didn't stop. We had a bag of bread most of the time, and a jar of peanut butter, and a gallon of water. Because you didn't stop and get a Diet Coke along the way back then. You just drove through. You got gas, you went to the bathroom, and we went.
In fact, I'm thinking maybe the Child Protective Services should have taken us away. I remember I'd sleep in the little back window and just lay in that back window, and Tina, my little sister, would be curled up under the feet of the other. We were just everywhere. Just a bunch of little white-headed kids. I'm glad they didn't take us away, I guess. But
Yeah.
that was the 80s. That's how you did, right? Isn't that normal back then?
So anyway, long story short, Elder Stout was introduced to Pam Gilstorf, who was in high school at the time, getting ready to graduate, if I'm not mistaken. I could be. After graduation. My mom and her two friends, Ty and Linda Barrett, they weren't married yet, but they were going out to Rick's College. And I guess you could say Elder Stout followed her to Rick's College, and the rest is history. It was a great love story. They had a double wedding with that other couple, Ty and Linda, and this is the beginning of our family. So these are just some family pictures. On the left, my mom and her mother and her grandmother, and on the right, my dad and his mother, and then her mother. So
I think something that just strikes me when I see those pictures. I remember these ladies, my great grandma on my mom's side, and another great grandma on dad's side. I sometimes hear things from people when they get past the age of raising kids and their grandparents and then later great grandparents. And I wonder if people are sometimes not aware of how important you are as a grandparent and a great grandparent. Please know that these little old ladies had an impact on me that still just echoes almost every day. Something that they said or did comes into my head constantly, daily. So be proud of what you are. If you're a grandpa or a grandma, a great grandpa or great grandma, aunts and uncles, if you haven't made it there yet, stay alive longer. You got to get to that point. It's important.
it's really good. Okay. These are just a couple pictures from way back when. Just moving. We lived in Missouri for about 4 years, and then we moved back. And that's the moving van. I believe I was already in Hurricane, so I could try out for Tigerettes. So we're fast forwarding a really long ways. We don't want to keep you here all night, but this is just so cool. I love this. My parents, as couple missionaries, were called to the Missouri Independence Mission, which is essentially the same mission that my dad had been in and where my mom grew up. So that was really, really special. In the middle there's a photograph of the Leavenworth National Cemetery. That's where our grandfather and our grandmother are buried because he was a World War II vet. And so it's really special to us, but they served well, and the people loved them back there. How could they not? So. Now we're on to the people that they really care about. We say that Jed and I are their favorites. We're not. It's their grandchildren. It's all their grandchildren. So my mom and dad are amazing grandparents. They show service all the time. I hope I can say that my children, my sons and my nephew that are here tonight have seen that, and new niece have seen those acts of service. However, they try to be as quiet as their parents. They try to be as humble. And I have a lot of stories in my heart about both of my parents, but I don't want to embarrass them. I
do.
Okay, Jed will, but I want to stay the favorite, so Jed will embarrass him.
It's easy to stay second favorite. No, I don't want to get super specific, but one that just hit me really hard 3 or 4 years ago, a gentleman, and I'm going to keep him unnamed, and I'll keep some of the service things unnamed, but a gentleman came to me, and he had heard there was a kid in my ward heading out on a mission who just had no money, a really sweet kid, had no money. And so this gentleman who had come onto some money found out about this kid and asked me if he could pay for that kid's mission. And I said, absolutely, that would be very sweet. Wow, thank you. Let's set it up. So I was helping him set up the payment to pay for the entire 2-year mission. What is that, $10,000 or $12,000? It was a bunch of money. And so we set it up so he could pay for this boy's mission. And when he got done setting it up, he looked me in the eye and he said, "You want to know why I'm doing this?" And I said, "No, why?" And he said, "It's because of something." He got specific. I won't get specific because I'm embarrassing my mom and dad, but it's because of something that your parents did for me about 15 years ago when I was destitute and I was depressed and everything was falling apart, and they saved me. And I do something like this every year now that I've got money. So the ripple that we can have when someone does something kind for someone else is a powerful thing. And to see that ripple kind of come back to a sweet kid that was in my ward was a cool thing to see, and that he mentioned it was because of something Pam and Steve had done. I know this room is full of good people who do a lot of kind things for people, and I applaud every one of you for your small acts of kindness. But today, of course, I'm picking on my mom and dad. They do things for people all the time, and I'm proud to say that they're my parents. It's the best bloodline I could possibly ask for.
Here's just a couple more pictures of our family and some different gatherings that we've had together. Mom and Dad recently in May were made great-grandparents, which is amazing. So we've got that little baby down in the corner, and we're so excited to add to that. So Pam and Steve have 5 children, 23 grandchildren, including some in-law, granddaughter-in-laws, and 1 great-grandchild. And just some more pictures for them to look at. When I think of service, I can't help but think of my parents, my grandparents, and further back, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents. I'm so thankful that my parents took the time to teach me about my ancestors, to the point where I feel like I know Alan Joseph Stout. I feel like I know Dudley Levitt. I feel like I know Sarah Levitt. Even though I didn't know them here, I feel like I know them. I've read their stories, and I feel like I know them. And I just want to reiterate what Jed said. It's so important to keep those stories and that family history going with our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, and to just never let those stories die, and to let our ancestors live on in us and the service that they did, that we can keep doing, like Jed said, the ripple effect.
I think that's all we've got. Let's just, if you would, please a hand for Steve and Pam Stout.
Everyone that can, please stay and help us clean up. That's the only thing I have.
Father in heaven, how grateful we are to be together this night to celebrate the lives of some good friends. We're thankful to have been able to associate with Pam and Steve Stout and to feel of their love and their generosity and their kindness. We're grateful for the presentation tonight and thankful for those who contributed to it. And we're grateful for the Sons of Utah Pioneers and the way that we honor those who came before us and make sure that it goes on to other generations, that they can see the many blessings they've received from their ancestors. We pray that thou might bless those who have to travel tonight to get to their homes, that they will do so in safety. And we're thankful for this opportunity and say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Appointment in St. George. I got an appointment in St. George. I'm gonna sneak out early, but we got over pretty good. But I'm not gonna stand out clean up.